A geologist curious about carbon emissions has learned why it's probably for the best that some of our favorite superheroes don't actually exist. In a project, he compared the average American's yearly carbon footprint, 44,000 pounds, to that of some of our favorite superheroes, from Batman to Spider-Man to Jessica Jones. It says one of the best carbon footprints went to Superman, with zero impact on the environment. He harnesses his power and energy from the sun. And arguably the worst footprint goes to the Flash. He can run at the speed of light, and with a normal diet, he would emit 25 million pounds of greenhouse gases per year. If he only ate hamburgers, the Flash would emit nearly 90 million pounds each year. Here to discuss all of this is the man behind the entire project, Miles Traer. So Miles, how did the project come about?
So this is a project about learning, and as part of my research, I study landscape evolution. And in the course of reading these papers, I would see these carbon numbers that were associated with transforming one type of landscape into another. And the numbers were staggering: millions, tens of millions of pounds of carbon dioxide. But I didn't know how significant that was. It was definitely significant, but I had nothing to compare it to. I didn't know my own carbon footprint. What was the carbon footprint of the average American? So this was a project to teach myself and hopefully teach other people about carbon footprints.
So what would you say the purpose of the project was?
The purpose of the project was to help us understand what a carbon footprint means and what goes into a carbon footprint. It's just a number, but what are all of the pieces of our lives? What actions do we take that contribute to that overall number?
And what shocked you the most when you look at your findings?
So the biggest surprise was probably best illustrated through Batman. When I first started looking at Batman, I was looking at his gadgets and his suit, a lot of exotic materials. You know, he has the batarangs and his probably bulletproof vest and his belt and all of the wonderful things. And I used something called life cycle assessment, which is a way of tracking how much carbon is associated with building materials. And when I did that, I found that Batman's gadgets in his suit would emit roughly 9,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. And that's a lot, 9,000 compared to the average American's 44,000. But it got bigger. So then I was looking at the Batmobile, which is probably a hybrid of a high-end sports car or an armored car, and the fuel efficiency's got to be terrible. It's literally shooting fire out the back. There's no way that has a good carbon footprint. So then I calculated the carbon footprint for the Batmobile, and that it went from thousands of pounds from the bat suit up to tens of thousands of pounds. I think it was around 50,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. But then I looked at his Batwing, and his Batwing was just terrible. You know, he's burning jet fuel at these amazing rates, or these absolutely staggering rates. And then it went from tens of thousands of pounds up to millions of pounds. But the most surprising thing was that the biggest contributor to his carbon footprint wasn't any of that. It wasn't flying, it wasn't his car, and it wasn't all of his gadgets. The biggest contributor to his carbon footprint was electricity consumption for using the Bat computer, just a really expensive supercomputer. That was really surprising to me.
I almost feel like you've got to come up with a new superhero that's more eco-friendly.
So actually, in terms of eco-friendly superheroes, there are a few out there. Captain Planet, probably the best known, but the one that I investigated was a lesser-known character from the DC Comics universe named Swamp Thing. And Swamp Thing is sneakily good for the environment. He's actually absorbing carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, which gives him a negative carbon footprint. So he's very good for the planet.
Good to know there is one that you really, really back, Miles. Miles Traer in San Francisco, thank you so much for joining us. A fun report.
Thank you very much.